You booked it, episode 51. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainers 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to be a successful entertainer. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainers. We are here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating and review. And to show our appreciation for your, fingers crossed, 5-star rating and review, I will give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. And now, let's do this. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Anne Martinez. Are you ready for this, Anne?
Woohoo!
All right. Anne is an actor, singer, dancer, aerialist, showgirl. A New York native, she has been living and performing in Las Vegas for the past 6 years. She recently starred in Baz Las Vegas as Satine. Other Vegas credits include Fantasy, The Terry Bradshaw Show, Jubilee, Pinup, Showstoppers, Bite, Sexy, Zombie Burlesque, Dancing Queen, 50 Shades, the musical parody, World's Greatest Rock Show, Totally Outrageous, Electric Candy, Zoe Bowie, and Red Penny Arcade. National tours include John Payne's Asia and Lou Graham Tour and Engelbert Humperdinck's North American Tour as a featured vocalist. She has also played Patty and was the Sandy Rizzo cover in the European tour of Greece. Anne is also the creator of the neo-Victorian steampunk rock opera Alice. She holds a BFA in acting from SUNY Fredonia and an MA in Advanced Theatre Practice from London, UK's Central School of Speech and Drama. She also tours internationally with her solo concert, The Queen of Hearts. And that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Fill in the gaps, who you are and what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Well, hi, Dane. I've been performing since I started dancing when I was 2. And my first professional dancing gig was I was 8 years old, and I loved it. It was really cool to get paid to do what I really loved. And so I just kind of started out there, and I used to compete in national dance competitions. And then I kind of fell into theater by accident when I was 11. And I was really fortunate to do my first theatrical experience was a professional one. And I had the most amazing time, worked with an incredible director, and decided like that's what I wanted to do. So I kept doing a lot of theater work. I did some film and television commercial work as a kid and some print modeling. And then I decided I wanted to get my BFA in acting. And then I was fortunate to study abroad for a semester. And I loved the training I got in London. So I decided to do my master's degree there. I did that, wrote my thesis, came home, and just started working. I was really lucky. I moved to New York, and 2 weeks later, I got a tour and was gone. So I've just been kind of bebopping around since. And then I settled in Las Vegas in the end, and it's been a wild ride of lots of different shows and different genres. And in my spare time, I write quite a bit. I like to create things, and I'm constantly reading books and looking at artwork and listening to different types of music to really kind of build my creative palette. So when I do write anything, it can come from someplace new and exciting. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
I love it. And let's move on to this next section here. And Anne, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your
Ooh.
favorite quote you'd like to share with everybody?
My favorite quote is from the book The Little Prince. And there's a moment where the fox says to the little prince, he says, "What is essential is invisible to the eye." And that is probably my favorite quote of all time. And I think is probably one of the most precious, heartbreaking, and true statements out there. What is really essential, you can't see with your eye, you feel it or you know it in your heart.
Absolutely. And could you maybe even expand a bit further on how you've applied that quote or how it affects your daily life and your career?
I think it's always kind of not taking everything at face value. It's so important, especially in our business. There's a lot of different personalities and feelings, and people come from very, very different backgrounds. I think more than any other business, and it's so important. You have to work quickly and well with a ton of different people you've never met before, and some, very intimately. We're dancing together, we're performing together. Sometimes you even have to smooch somebody you don't know. And it's very, very important to keep your heart open and aware as to what's going on around you, so you can work with different types of people, and also to essentially tell the story, because that is our job first and foremost. So I think what's essential is not always at face value. What's essential is invisible to the eye. So it's very important to look beyond things, to work well with people, and also to tell the story in the most honest of ways.
I love that. And I love how you've really taken that quote on and really made it part of your entire life and your career. And it actually leads us to this next section. And of
Woo!
course, you are an entertainer. I am an entertainer, and I think you'd agree that this industry is one of the most subjective, brutally honest, and personally emotional industries either of us have probably ever experienced. And you know as well as I do that in order to create and to have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yes, of course, there's an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are inevitably going to experience, and we're going to have to move forward through them if we have any hopes of continuing to do this professionally. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
I think the number one thing, especially it's for everyone, but especially for the girls, you have to know who and what you are, and you cannot deviate from that reality. So I always use this example: we're all condiments, and if you're mustard, you can't pretend to be whipped cream. You have to know exactly what you are. Like, for instance, I am a 5'5" female, of a certain type and build and a certain look. So I'm not going to waste my time auditioning for a show that I'm not right for, because I personally want to be the lead in a show. That becomes arrogant and selfish, and that's not what we're here for. The hard thing with entertainment is I feel like it really does split in half. There are people who really love that applause, and it feeds their soul. And then there's people who really love the material and telling the story, and that feeds their soul. And it's really important that you not focus on the applause, you focus on the storytelling, because you will always get your heart broken. There's always, you can give the most beautiful performance of all time, and someone will say, "I didn't like it." And if that's what you're hanging on to, if that's what you're hanging your hat on as success, your heart will be broken so many times. And I think as a performer, we all kind of reach that moment where you kind of think, okay, am I doing this because, everyone thinks I'm cute and it makes me feel good about myself? Or am I doing this because I really love telling the story? And it kind of, you'll see them in your career, they kind of will split. And it's so important to know who and what you are, and to market yourself accordingly. I've had a lot of people, they'll wait in line for hours and hours and hours without their equity card in New York for Wicked. And they may not be right for one of the roles that they want, but they'll wait in the rain for hours. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there going, you know what you could be doing is go to a non-equity audition and build your resume. Get those roles on your resume. And then when there's a show that you're appropriate for, sit in the rain or earn your EMC points. You know, it's so important to go about this business as a business person and to not get caught up in the hype, because it'll just break your heart. And I was lucky. I went through that really young because I started so young. And I was like, I had my parents there kind of guiding me, telling me, you know, I couldn't get so heartbroken when a show ended or something didn't go right. And they were there to guide me. And so by the time I went into it, I continued into it as an adult, I was, you know, able to kind of separate that. So it's extremely important, because in the end, it's a job. It's a job. Every show will close, and you have to prepare yourself financially. You have to prepare yourself emotionally, and it's, you know, that's how we continue in this business. You can't get hung up on little things, and as long as you're doing your job and you're telling that story, you're doing what you're meant to do in that moment. The minute you think, oh, if this person's here and they don't like what I'm doing and they don't applaud for me loudly, it's going to ruin my day, your heart will be broken every time. So that's kind of my advice there.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you took a moment to talk about how people will oftentimes audition and put themselves up for roles that really they're not quite right for. And you said, what would be a better idea is maybe go look for those non-ec jobs and get that experience under the belt. If you want to be that leading role, go do some leading roles. And it's not just, I don't think it's just for doing leading roles to get, or just to get experience. To me, it sounds more like you're saying, go do those roles so you can discover who and what you are so that you can
Oh,
start making better
absolutely.
decisions about what roles to put yourself forward for.
Yes. I mean, I always considered myself the funny friend, you know, so I would always go to the funny friend auditions. I never went to an ingenue audition because I didn't have the confidence. And I also didn't see myself that way, because in my head, an ingenue was XYZ. And in the past, I had been the funny friend. So that's all I went for. And I was auditioning for Into the Woods at a regional gig. And I was, you know, getting called back for one of the stepsisters. And of course, I was so excited because they're so funny and I couldn't wait. And at the very last second, at the very end of the audition, the director said, will you sing the last 16 bars of On the Steps of the Palace? And that was Cinderella's role. And I was absolutely petrified. I remember feeling my knees just turn to jelly, because immediately I thought, I'm not a good enough soprano. I'm not pretty enough. I don't have that ingenue look. You know, they're not going to let. And in that same second, I was like, stop it. Just do what you would do. Just do what you know. And, you know, I find that character to be very charming and actually quite funny. And so I played it that way. And I sang it and they just went, okay, thank you. And that was it. And I'm like, I
Ah,
bombed that one. And I got the role. And later in rehearsals, I asked the director, I said, you know, why did you ask me to sing that? And he goes, every time you went up to do we would call you, you know, to read again for the stepsister, because I was reading with a bunch of different people. He goes, you always did something a little different. And it was so funny. And he said, we thought, I wonder if she could make Cinderella funny. And so he goes, we just wanted for you to do it. And he said, when you did that, he goes, it was so honest and different. He was like, we looked at each other, we're like, she has to have this part. And that's why they gave it to me. So I realized in that moment, the minute you pigeonhole yourself as you have to be very careful. You have to know what you are in a physical sense, like your height, your weight, your look. But your acting ability is infinite. So it's important to say, you know, if you're a guy and you're under 6 feet tall, the reality is that most leading men, especially on Broadway, are 6 feet and up. However, you know, you can cut your chops in regional theater on tour, and, you know, you never know. Things are always, especially in this day and age, people are starting to loosen up those pictures they have in their head of what something should, quote unquote, be. So it's important to know what you're right for, so you're not wasting time for an audition. But at the same time, you know, broadening yourself and not saying, oh, I'm only a funny friend. It's the character. Can you play that character? Like, for instance, if you've got a very strong voice, a classical voice, by all means, audition for Sweeney Todd, for Joanna. If you're not a strong soprano, do not go in for Joanna. Just don't do it because they need that musically. However, if you've got a very strong belt, you better go into that Crazy for You audition. So you make it that choice. I may want to sing Sweeney Todd all day long, but if I'm vocally stronger for Crazy for You, I'm here to make money. So I'm going to go to that Crazy for You audition. But I'm just saying, keep your mind open on the possibilities of your acting to broaden that character, because nothing is that simplistic. Every character is multifaceted, and it's up to us to create that person. But also just know what you are. I always say to people, if you're just getting out of college and you don't have any regional credits, you can't put down high school credits, and you haven't really done anything yet. You've only done like high school shows and like college, productions, which is, fantastic. But you don't have that resume yet. I had so many friends only go to equity auditions and they had to sit forever because they didn't have their card yet. And then they go and be seen and they'd say to them the same thing. They'd say, you need more experience. And they were so frustrated. There's nothing wrong. It's wonderful to build your resume with all those roles in the non-equity theater and really cut your chops on there. Get your card. So when you walk into those calls, they can look at your resume and say, wow, this person has played boom, 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 boom. They see your experience. It's so, so important. And then that way you can move forward if you choose to be a part of the Actors Union, and have a good career. It's just very important to be real with yourself and honest about who and what you are, so you can play roles and play them well and make your money. We're all here to make a living.
Absolutely. And I love all of your insight and your advice on that subject. And let's move on to this next section, to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That
Ooh.
one time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Oh, what I need to be doing as an entertainer, I learned at my very first audition. I was 11, I auditioned for Annie. It was the dancer call, and I was in the second group. And I was watching the first group go, everyone's doing the dance combination. And this one girl was like full out with feeling. And I remember watching her going, oh, we can be that big. We can, that's what I need to do. I need to be, because I was watching her and I was like, oh, I need to be that dedicated in this moment. And it set a tone for me in auditioning to be 100 all the time, because they're looking to make their football team. You want to give them what you're capable of, and in, of course, a professional way. But that was my oh, that's how you need to be moment for sure, an audition level. And then the moment of that's what I want to do, I vividly remember I was 3, and my mom took me to see the Nutcracker, and we had just driven back from West Virginia. It was a 10-hour drive, and my dad took my brothers home. They were tired, and it was the last night of the Nutcracker, and my mom asked if I wanted to go, and I said yes. And she bought me a huge hot pretzel, and I was in the balcony, and I was holding onto the pretzel and the brass, bar on the balcony so tight, the pretzel kind of like disintegrated in my little sweaty hand. And I was so thrilled by what I was watching. All I wanted to do was just to float up in the air and be a part of that world. It was the most thrilling thing. And just the thought of giving someone that experience thrilled me more than anything. And I knew in that moment, I was like, that's what I want to do, period. And I've never wavered from it.
Wow, I love that story. That's so good. And that it's such a vivid
Thanks.
memory still.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, let's piggyback on that question and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the audition and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
There's two. One was when I went to New York. I had saved all this money, and of course, it goes in 2 seconds, and I couldn't afford dance classes, so I would go to dance auditions and be like, I'm probably going to get cut because I'm not as strong as like someone who's a professional dancer. Period. But I'll get a free class. And I went to a Greece European tour audition, and I was like, oh, there's no way I would ever book this. I'm not a strong enough dancer. Well, I go to the dance call, and I just, I don't know, I was having so much fun because I had no pressure on myself. And then they asked me to sing, and I was like, oh, sure. And I'm Grease isn't a show that I would ever do because I kind of can play multiple roles. I don't really look specifically strong enough for any of them. And so I didn't really think anything of it. And they kept me longer and longer and longer, and they had me dance more and more. And I was just like, why have they not cut me yet?
You're like,
This
this
is
is one
so
heck of a dance
weird.
class.
Yeah, I was like, I'm getting like a 6-hour dance class. This is great. I was leaving, and they asked me to come back in, and I booked it. And it was this incredible tour of Europe in this show. And I learned how to swing for the first time. And of course, I'd never done it before. And they were like, have you swung before? And I'm like, of course. Absolutely not. But I would always say yes, unless it's a safety issue, say yes, because you'll figure it out. And it's important to be as skilled as possible. But I couldn't believe that I booked it. And it was because I went in with no pressure on myself, and I had fun. And because I was having such a good time, I performed much better than I think I would have if I had put the pressure of, oh God, I want this job so bad. And the other time I got called in for a production of Aida for the role of Amneris. And that was a role I wanted to play so badly. And I flew in, I was working a regional gig. I bought a plane ticket, flew in for the day, and I was all prepared. And I went in and sang my 16 bars, and they were like, okay, great, thank you. And I was devastated. I had a friend tell me, if you're not getting called back, something's wrong. Something is wrong. You're singing the wrong song. You didn't do well. Like, if you're not getting called back, that is the issue that you should focus on when you get started. And it was the best advice, and I give it all the time. And it was the first time I wasn't called back. I always got called back. And I remember sitting in Starbucks on like 38th and 8th and just going, what did I do? I can't believe it. Like, I felt so prepared, and my phone rang, and I booked it.
Really?
And I couldn't believe it. I didn't even read. I didn't even dance, nothing. I just came in, I sang 16 bars and left. And later in rehearsal, I asked the director, I said, may I ask you, did someone drop out? Like, what happened? Like, why did you give me this role? He said, you were the only person who was kind to the pianist all day. And you sang, and we were reading your resume, and we saw you were experienced. I don't need to see you read. You have 2 degrees in acting. Clearly you can read. You had a wonderful resume. And we said, thank you. And we were going to call you back to move. And the pianist, who was the musical director, in the end turned to them and said, if you do not hire her, I'm walking out. That is the only person who said good morning to me and thank you so much and treated me with dignity. And
Wow.
that's how I got that gig. And that was such a huge, I booked it moment, because actors need to remember, a lot of times the auditor of the room is the SM or their assistant. And they're telling them everything that's going on in that holding room. And a lot of times the pianist is the MD or their assistant or a friend of the director. And they will tell them how your book looked, what was in your book, being organized, all that stuff. It's so important. I always tell everyone, it's a job interview. It's not pretty princess or like, aren't I cute? It's a job interview. So you have to conduct yourself accordingly. And the fact that I was kind and polite, I booked a role of a lifetime. And it was such a huge moment for me where I realized, how incredibly important it is to conduct yourself as a professional. And I got to play this role. I was absolutely terrified to play because it's very hard musically, and I was so nervous, but I kept telling myself, no, you booked this because you went in right, so keep it there in your process, and don't get in your head. Just keep right where you should be. And that was
Yeah,
a huge moment for me. Yeah. And plus, that's such a cool show. I love it. I love Aida. It's beautiful production.
for sure. And there is so much to be taken away from everything you were just talking about through those two booked it moments. But I love in the second part when you're talking about, being nice to people, but to realize that, yeah, an audition is an interview in a
Oh
very
yeah.
real sense. And it's not just that you can sing the songs or dance the dance or act and read the sides properly. It's of course all about that. It's about all those subjective things like your look and your height and if you're appropriate for the role in the first place. But there's also those really very, corporate job traditional things that are very important, like having your book organized.
Oh yeah. And having a good headshot, a clean headshot, and being. I always tell people, students I've talked to and stuff. I said, you're an athlete. That you have to be able to do 10 out of 12s. You have to be able to be ready to rehearse, be there 15 minutes early and stretch, because they're not going to do a stretch class for you. You have to be able to go in and be ready, because you're telling them, I'm prepared, I'm ready, I'm always going to be on time, I'm not going to cause any drama. They don't want someone who's acting crazy in the holding room, or people would sign in and leave and go have brunch. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not here to have brunch. Or they go with all their friends to an audition. I'm like, my friends and I, we can hang out later. I'm here for a job interview, and I'm here to focus on what I want. I adore my friends and they're going to love me tomorrow. But right now, this is a job interview, and that's where my head needs to be. And that's the thing, theater, it's very social, which is wonderful. But at the same time, you can't get caught up in it. And in Las Vegas, it's a very different world. Sometimes people get the attitude here of, they'll call me if they need me. I'm like, well, you go right ahead. I'm going to put my leotard on. I'm going to be at that audition. I've had people be surprised that I attend an audition, because I've done some shows. And so they think that, they assume that I would have that kind of attitude. And I'm like, just because I've done some things which have been really cool does not mean that I'm any better than anyone else, and vice versa. Just because someone hasn't doesn't mean they're any less. When you walk into an audition, everyone deserves all the respect and dignity of anybody in this world. And you're there to work. You should go in wearing something that shows what your body looks like, because the costume designer needs to see if you can, fit. I've booked gigs because I fit the costume over somebody who was probably stronger than I was, but they don't have the budget to, reconstruct a costume.
Yeah.
It can go down to those simple things. When I did Jubilee, I'm too short. I'm only 5'5", but I was asked to audition by higher up, and I had a pit in my stomach the whole time, because that show was very specific to height, and I didn't want to offend anybody there. I was so worried that I would hurt someone's feelings, or and a showgirl is a very precious, very beautiful image here in Vegas that should always be honored and cultivated. And I was so terrified that someone would think I was disrespecting it. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I can't control my height, but what I can do is walk on stage and do a wonderful audition. And if I'm asked to be in the show, be a good cast member who's supportive and honors that imagery. And that's what I did. And I booked it. I'm the shortest female they've ever had in that show. And I didn't make a big deal out of it. I wore 5-inch stacked Frankenfurter heels so I could at least blend in. And I learned how to run down the stairs in those. And I was honored to be around those women, because, it wasn't my intended wheelhouse. But, kind of going back to the whole idea of respecting, the genres that you're auditioning for, and honoring the material, you can do. You're limitless. The minute you deviate from that and it becomes about you will fail.
Absolutely. I love all that. And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And it's a weird time. We are amidst this global pandemic. How do you
Yes.
see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Well, I'm pretty sure, and this is just a total theory. I'm pretty sure there won't be any like shows until spring of next year. And as much as I want, things to open now and all those things, it, once again, we have to eliminate our emotions from the situation and think with, a business head. And, business sense wise, if you have to cut, 60% of your house, no one's, the show will really close because there's no, revenue. And then we
Yeah.
will be in a pickle. So a bigger pickle than we are now, if that's even possible. So it's important for me, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to stay healthy and be healthy for other people. And so we can go back to work. I've been extremely fortunate to book some work and of course in very specific and safety regulated situations. And I'm always on my hustle. When you're kind of where I'm at, where I'm not quite tall, but I'm not quite short, you have to work a little extra harder. And I love that. And I don't wait for things to come to me. I'm always in search of what is the next story to tell, what's the next thing I can do. So I was given the opportunity to work on some cool costume pieces for fantasy at the Luxor. And I was very fortunate that Anita Mann, the producer, who is just absolutely incredible, allowed me this opportunity to make these pieces for the girls. And it ended up, those girls would look gorgeous in like a t-shirt and big sweatpants. So
Right?
it's not like I did anything special. Just seeing the girls be happy and feel beautiful and seeing the thrill and this beautiful thing, I was kind of like, wow, this is kind of cool. So I've been working on building a line, a costume line of all couture, one-of-a-kind pieces, and called Saint Showgirl. To us, being a showgirl is religion, is kind of my tagline. And it's all, couture pieces, all, hand rhinestone, handmade, for women in Las Vegas and beyond, for cool costume pieces. So I've got lots of time. So I've been working on those, and I'm building quite a big line. And once I have at least 300 pieces, I'll be launching that online. I've also been working with my jazz quartet, the Red Penny Arcade, and we're performing at the Venetian on Fridays and Saturdays now. And of course, with all of the COVID rules used, and learning new music. I'm learning Italian, which is stressful and fun, and no pressure. And I also started working in the studio with electric recording. I was just, I was doing background vocals for them. It's just kind of like a bartering situation. And I got to do a really cool cover of a song with some brilliant musicians, an incredible engineer. And I filmed a whole like little short movie to go with it. When you're in this business, I always say to people, like, don't be afraid to just be creative. There's absolutely nowhere you could go wrong if you're coming from an honest, creative place where you're telling a story that you want to tell. And, people may like it, they may not. That's okay. It's more about feeding your soul. This is a tough time. It's hard. Like, ever, get on Facebook, I see, people just putting up, their fears and all this stuff. And it's really been tough on artists all over the world. And especially here in Vegas, where we are dependent on our audience, which is transient. It's in and out, in and out, in and out, which exposes us times a billion than any other place. It's hard for us to get our numbers at a certain place because we have different people come here all the time. Just the watching, beautiful shows that I've loved, not being here, and people wondering how they're going to survive is tough. But I say to those people, what makes Vegas wonderful and very unique out of any other entertainment city to me is we are very small and we're all extremely passionate. And that's what makes this city truly the heartbeat of entertainment, because that's what we do, period. There's no other thing you hear, and you can take that passion and put it towards your imagination, whatever it may be. And, just creating something that makes you feel, that excitement again. The shows will come back. We will bounce back. I think it'll be in 2021 in the spring, probably around March is when things will really start to reopen again, because it's a business and people need to, everyone down from the corporate to the producers, we have to respect these people are investing a lot of money so we can do our jobs, and they have to make a profit, and they want to protect us and take care of us, but at the same time they have to take care of their families. And so the best thing I think is to dig deep. If I could sit at home and feel very sad and sorry for myself and kind of just drown in it, because why not? I mean, it's hard. Or I can get online and discover Amazon, which I did, and find low cost things and hand sew some stuff on there, and then add a little more and add a little more, make something that makes me excited. Go to the studio and record. I'm terrified of recording. That's not what I've focused on, but I was like, heck, you know what? I'm going to try it. And I'm going to sing in Italian. Am I terrified? Absolutely. Am I writing everything phonetically? Absolutely. But, it's something new that I can try. And, last week while we were performing a bride and a groom were walking through the Venetian, and I know so many people had to cancel their weddings. And my wedding was the most magical day I've ever experienced. And just hear my friends having to cancel their weddings because of this, and just, oh, my heart broke. And here's this couple that were like, well, we'll just get married, just us, And I called them over and I sang an old Gershwin song for them, and they got to slow dance in the middle of the Venetian casino area. And that's what it's about. That's why we do what we do. We give people a moment that is precious, that they remember. We tell a story that connects with them, or they learn something and it holds with them forever. They see something beautiful that they remember forever. They laugh in a way they've never laughed before. They see something shocking they've never seen before. And we give them that gift. When that opportunity is taken away from us, there's always a way for your voice to be heard. I truly believe that, be it a virtual, performance, singing for people in your neighborhood, painting, drawing, creating something. And that's my advice to our artists right now. Though they've taken our stage away, they can't take away our soul. They can't take away our music. They can't take away our dance. They can't take away our art. And it's just, we decide where we put it for now until the stage is ready for us.
I love that. I love that. Such great advice, great insight, great outlook on everything in this entire situation. And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it
Ooh.
the Grease Lightning Round.
Oh my God.
I'm going to ask you a
Ready.
handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Yes, Dane. Give it.
All right. First question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
Confidence.
Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Work harder. Work hard, work harder.
Love it. Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Telling the story 100%.
Absolutely. And the fourth question. What is the best resource, whether that's a book, a movie, a YouTube video, podcast, maybe a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
Oh, Dane. Well, I would say for research purposes, a computer, clearly. A YouTube, finding covers of songs just to hear musicality is always wonderful. And me, I love when I'm searching something or creating something, Pinterest is my buddy, because you can look up any topic and see artwork and designs and things. It's extremely inspiring, and you're seeing constant, photos and things you prefer. But I love, if I'm researching, I love Pinterest. I love YouTube.
Love it. And the fifth question. If you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently, or would you keep it the same?
I would keep it the same. I have no regrets.
Love it. Last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in the industry that you like to leave with everyone?
It's a It's a professional job. You're an athlete. You're a storyteller, no more nor less. And remembering that will see you through. Be in the best physical shape of your life. Be in the best vocal shape of your life. Tell the story. Tell the story. Be easy to work with. Be early. Be pleasant. Keep religion and politics out of work. And number one thing, you go in, you do your job, you go home, and enjoy every second of it.
I love it.
Yay!
And that means it's time to wrap up this interview, which also means it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find
Ooh.
you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Well, currently, if anyone wants to come see me perform, I'll be at the Venetian, rules permitting of COVID, through July, Friday and Saturday from 2 to 6 at St. Mark's Square with some of the most brilliant musicians in town. We'll be doing everything from traditional, really fun Italian, old school, to our own arrangements and mashups of really fun songs of today. I'm about to release a cover version of the new James Bond song "No Time to Die," written by Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas, with a whole movie film coming out that'll be coming out within about a week or so. And I'll be hosting Late Night Magic. If anyone would like to come and see that, I would love for them to be there. And of course, they're following all of the COVID rules, but that will be downtown, and it will be at the Notoriety. And it's $20 tickets, and they are being very strict with all the COVID rules, so you can feel nice and comfortable there. And yeah, it's going to be a great night. We've got incredible people. We've got Anna Rose, Rocco, John Shaw, myself, and Luna. And we're going to be doing a lot of magic and just like hanging out, doing some cool stuff. And that starts, doors are at 9 and the show is at 10.
Beautiful. And on social media, where do we connect with you?
You can connect. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram. And that's Anne with an E, Martinez, LV. You can connect with me there. And of course, if anyone ever has a question or thing, please feel free to send me a message. I'm also on Facebook, Anne Martinez. You can look me up under my maiden name, which is Barr, Barr. But the best way to connect with me is always on Instagram. And I'm always putting up, new things about what I'm doing in town. And of course, my stories, which disappear, will feature all of my furry companions. I have 2 Pomeranians and some Persian cats, and I shaved them all to look like lions. So feel free to get on there and check out my little fluffkins. They're pretty fun.
Beautiful. Well, Anne, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much.
Dane, thank you. And before I go, I have to say this one thing about Dane. I don't know if he remembers this, but Dane and I did many shows together. But one of the shows we did was Dancing Queen. And there was one number called Voulez-Vous. And there was a section where I got lifted up by the boys. And I don't know what happened, but only Dane showed up to lift me. And Dane, I don't know if you remember, but you literally bench pressed me up and
Yeah.
had me all by yourself. And no one else was there. The people who held my feet, my hand were not there. And I didn't wiggle or waver. And you put me down and you gave me a little tap. You were like, "You're okay." And off you went. And I was like, that guy's like Superman. It was a true, like, oh my God, moment of like, wow, that was cool. And then later I was like, he totally bench pressed me, like all by himself on stage, like it was nothing. But I think that just kind of sums you up. But we've been through a lot, Dane, and we've had many crazy memories, but I think that's personally my favorite one, being bench pressed by Dane on stage in the middle of a show because no one else showed up.
Wonderful. I'm glad I could be there for you.
As am I. But it was pretty impressive.
Beautiful. I love that. All right, we'll cut there. Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode.
We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.